Hello, this is a recording of our Benefits 101 presentation, which is for all new UW-Madison employees who are eligible for the Wisconsin retirement system. I'm recording this session on December 18th, 2023, and it is going to focus on the year of 2024's benefits. As just a quick introduction, my name is Thomason Propson, and I am one of about a dozen or so benefit specialists who work in the central office of Human Resources. So we work with your own local HR, payroll, and benefit coordinators to provide you the information that you need as an employee to make decisions about your benefits. And when you have questions in the future, you'll either be talking to your own local HR or talking to my office to get the answers that you need. But let's get started with today's introduction to benefits. This video is for all of you who are new to the UW-Madison and who are new to Wisconsin retirement system benefits as well. So you may be considered a university staff employee, you might be faculty member, you might be academic staff or a limited appointee, but what brings us all together on this video is your eligibility for the Wisconsin retirement system. And so we will introduce to you the benefit programs of which you could now decide to be a part and talk about the basics that you need to know to make your best decision. By the end of today's recording, you should be able to identify your enrollment deadlines. You'll be able to know where to find more information about the 2024 plan options, and you'll be able to send us your decisions. Once you've had a moment to mull them over, you'll be able to either send us electronically or via paper or email your actual elections and opt-out choices. We'll spend time today on the Wisconsin retirement system itself, what it means to be part of that larger system. And we'll talk about health insurance, as well as life and disability insurances. We're focusing on those specifically because they can be the now or never enrollments that are offered to you as a new employee, but may never be open to you again. So life and disability insurance will be important to focus upon. And then we'll wrap up with some brief overviews of the other supplemental plans like dental and vision and flexible spending accounts. So you get the full overview of all of your options. Now, my presentation today is coming directly from our UW-Madison Benefit Services office. So you'll see our website and our email address on the screen here for you. But going forward, it's likely that you'll be actually working more directly with your local unit's HR, your payroll contact, your HR contact, your immediate supervisor. They are often whom you'll be connecting with when you have questions about your insurance and other benefits plans. In the meantime, though, especially as you're getting settled, don't hesitate to reach out to my office if you have any questions. We're happy to help you. And when you do reach out to my office in the future, it is extremely helpful if you can leave, along with your name, a mention of your employee ID number. And sometimes we call those EMPL IDs on campus. Once you begin to receive an earnings statement, you'll see your employee ID number printed in the upper left-hand corner of your earnings statements. And you'll want to track that down, write it down so that you have it on hand should you ever need to reach out to the HR office. That way we can look you up without needing any social security number information. We'd rather not use that if we can help it. And it is not the same number as your WISC card number. So it's not the number that's printed on your physical ID card. It's a separate number completely. So if you can find that and have it at the ready when you reach out to us, that is most useful. Now, your own local HR will be the points of contact for you whenever you have questions about contact lists or unit policies. And you'll also be talking directly to your local payroll and benefits contacts when you need to take time off, so you need to ask for leave balances, or you have payroll questions. It is they whom you'll reach out to. If you don't yet know who your local HR contacts might be, you can look them up on our website, hr.wisc.edu/contact, find your school, college, or division's name, and then you'll see the primary HR contact listed there. And from there, if there are more specific, smaller department contacts, they will let you know, but just reach out to them to get started. Now, from our website, hr.wisc.edu/benefits, you'll find additional written information about the benefits being offered to you, including enrollment forms. If now or in the future you actually need a paper form to complete to hand in due to a life event change, or if you simply don't have access to a computer at that time. And you're always welcome to email us with questions that you may have about your benefits. Just shoot an email to benefits@ohr.wisc.edu. And one of the initial resources I will emphasize as important will be the Employee Trust Fund Health Benefits Decision Guide. ETF, the Wisconsin Department of Employee Trust Funds, creates this decision guide every year, and they share it with all state entities, including those of us at the UW who are offered their state benefits. And it gives a nice overview of the types of insurance that are being offered to us by the state of Wisconsin, as well as the pricing for each of those plans, and a compare and contrast of some of the variations of plans. There are different types of health insurance plans, for example. There are different types of dental programs as options. And so you can review and compare and contrast the various options all in one place in their decision guide. And then on the wisconsin.edu website, which is where you would go for our Universities of Wisconsin kind of main pages, you'll find benefits quick summaries and guides. You'll also find a benefits walkthrough that you can use to walk step by step through the different options of benefits as a new employee and consider how much you would pay if you were to actually enroll in all of the plans in which you were interested. Now, that walkthrough doesn't actually enroll you in anything. It is just a tool to allow you to consider all of the options and what the prices would be if you chose to elect everything you wanted to. So it is useful as a review before you actually push the decisions to us. You have, as a new hire, 30 days from the date you started as a UW-Madison WRS participant. You have 30 days from that date to consider your options and make sure that we receive your decisions. So if you're, on the example on the screen, for example, if your start date were January 2nd, then we would need all of your decisions, your enrollments and your opt-outs to be received by our office no later than February 1st. Sooner would be better, but you would have that full 30-day window all the way from January 2nd to the February 1st date to make sure that we received your decisions. If we received anything after the 30 days, then we can't honor it as a new employee decision, and we would have to talk to you about what other options may be offered. For example, some of our benefits are offered on an annual basis, so even if you miss enrolling in them as a new hire, you may be able to elect some of them in the future for next calendar year. Now, we have a list here of all the plans that are available to our new WRS participants. And before you make any decisions as a new hire, we'll want you to think about each of those different options and think carefully about what you need now for the rest of this year of 2024, and then also think what you might need in the future, so into 2025 and beyond, since some of these plans, especially our disability and life insurance plans, may not offer you any additional opportunities beyond this new hire enrollment opportunity. But this is what we were talking about today, all of these different plans and what it would mean to participate in any or all of them. These first three types, the accidental death and dismemberment policy, the pre-tax parking account, and our supplemental retirement plans, they are very flexible on enrolling into and then canceling out of participation. So these would allow you to enroll in them at any time of year. You could do so now as a new employee, or you could do so next month, in 6 months, next year, and still have them in place going forward after that. You could also pause your participation in them at any time during your employment. So it's easy to get into and out of these three types of plans. For most of our plans, though, there are only certain times when you can enroll into them. And then once enrolled, you have to remain enrolled for the full calendar year. And each fall, you could make changes to your previous enrollments or opt-outs. You can leave or rejoin them just one time every year. So the accident insurance offered by the state, our dental insurance plans, our flexible spending accounts, the health insurance programs, and our vision insurance programs are these types of plans where you could enroll in them now as a new employee and then have them throughout 2024. Or if you initially waived them as a new employee, you may still be able to enroll in them later this year if you incurred a life event like a marriage or the birth of a child, and you signed up for them within 30 days of that life event. So these offer limited but regular enrollment opportunities. Usually at least once a year, you could reassess and join or remove yourself from these plans. To focus quickly on life events, I want to point out that certain types of events in your life, such as when you add new people to your family or members of your family are now leaving, those could be opportunities to change the types of insurance that you initially signed up for as a new employee and either add those new family to your coverage or remove the family who are now leaving you off of your coverage. But every life event has a different type of effect on each of the different types of insurance. So the best thing to do if you have a life event where you either are getting married, having a new child added to your family, you're changing your home address, or someone is leaving your family through divorce, for example, or a child is aging out, check our website to see how your various types of insurance or insurance options are affected by that life change. We'll want to hear from you within 30 days of a life change such as these so that we can provide you with the information you need to make decisions if you're allowed to make changes. And then there are these plans that offer very limited enrollment opportunities. The disability insurance offered to us by the state of Wisconsin, which is called Income Continuation Insurance, or ICI for short. And then the life insurance plans, one of which is offered by the state of Wisconsin. We call it state group life insurance. The other, which is offered to us by the UW system. We call this individual and family life insurance. These disability and life insurance plans allow you to enroll in them now within your first 30 days as a new hire, but you may never be able to get into them in the future if you didn't enroll in them now as a new hire. And I'll explain what might possibly allow you to enroll in the future once we get to their section, but I will caution you that it can be difficult to enroll in these in the future. So carefully consider picking up disability or life insurance plans now as a new hire within your first 30 days if you think you may ever need them during your career. Now, once we have reviewed today's presentation in full and you have made your decisions about what you want to elect and as well as you want to opt out of or waive, you will submit your new hire decisions to my office within your 30-day deadline. Ideally, you'll be able to submit your choices online, and most of our employees can do this. You'll go into your MyUW portal, logging in with your net ID and your password, and then you will go to the benefit information tile and you'll click the Enroll Now button, and that will take you to a platform that allows you to see all the different insurance options that are available to you, and you can start with health and work your way on from there, choosing which plans you want to enroll into and which family members you want covered, as well as which plans you just want to be waived out of and not be part of. Now, there are other hyperlinks on that very same square for the benefit information tile. They take you to additional information, but as a new hire, if you're trying to actually tell us what elections you're making, you'll want to look not at them, but instead at the Enroll Now button. And if you find that you do not have the Enroll Now button, then that likely means you have to submit and hand in or email over copies of the applications. So rather than the online portal, you'll have to find applications for each of the plans you want to elect, then fill them out, each one separately, and then send them over to your HR office, and then they will send them to us. If you don't have the Enroll Now button, it could be, for example, that you have previous WRS service, or you are moving from our short-term grad benefit program to the Wisconsin retirement system. In those cases, yes, it would be correct that you would need to submit paper or email us copies of the PDF applications. To enroll in any of the insurance plans when you can't do so online, you'll go to each of the different plans, forms and publications section and fill out that benefits specific enrollment application. So each plan has its own. Health has its own, vision has its own, each of the life insurance plans have their own. And so you may be turning in many different forms if you're enrolling in numerous types of insurance, if, again, you can't submit those to us through the online portal. Now, there are at least 3 plans that we would need paperwork back from you if you have to submit paper. Even if you're waiving the coverage, we would still want at least these 3 next forms back. We would want the health insurance so that you could officially tell us, even if you were declining to enroll, that you knew you had the option and you're choosing not to pick it up. We would also want to hear from you about the state's group life insurance plan. So even if you're declining that coverage, if you can't submit the waiver online, you have to submit and fill out the paper application marking that you've declined the coverage. And then that third required form that we need back is the ICI disability insurance application. Even if you're choosing not to elect it, we still need proof that you knew it was an option and are deciding not to enroll. So again, many times you can still submit online, but if you can't, then getting at least these 3 paper applications ready to go and sending them over to your HR office will be important within your first 30 days. For anything else, like the other life insurance plan, the vision insurance, if you're choosing not to enroll in them as a new hire, then you simply don't submit their enrollment applications. It's easy enough to waive them if you do have the online portal, because you'll see that they're marked as waived and you just submit them as is. In this case, if you have to submit paper, we don't need these extra forms other than those first 3, as long as you are truly not interested in enrolling in them. Now, when your insurance will begin depends on whether or not we receive your paperwork timely. Within your first 30 days is what I mean by that. And then it will depend on when you started in your WRS appointment, the type of employment you hold, and then which insurance plans we're discussing, because different insurance plans start at different times. And we can start off by discussing the health insurance program, because that's usually where people have the most questions. So the health insurance can be effective the first of the month following your date of hire. And in the example on the screen, if John were to be hired in December 11th in this example, his health insurance would begin January 1st, the first of the month after his date of hire. Now, for some university staff, their health insurance can be delayed a bit until they have completed 2 months of WRS state service, and then their health insurance would be effective the first month after that. So in the example on this screen, we see that Jane was hired on January 2nd, and as long as she submits her application by deadline, she will have completed 2 months of WRS service, the first month on February 2nd, the third month on March 2nd, so her health insurance could begin April 1st, the first of the month after completing 2 months of WRS state service. There will be the need to clarify then whether you are faculty or a limited appointee. You likely know if that's the case. But if you're not certain whether you are academic staff or university staff, that's important to clarify, because your health insurance start date may depend on it. So again, review your offer letter to see whether you are academic staff or university staff, or if you can't find your offer letter easily, check in with your local HR and they can clarify that for you. For the other supplemental plans, like accident insurance, the dental insurance, flexible spending accounts, and vision insurances, they would be effective the first of the month following your date of hire. So if your start date were in December, then your vision insurance could start January 1st, as the slide is providing that example. For the accidental death and dismemberment policy and the life insurance plans, they are effective first of the month following 30 days of eligible employment. So if someone were to be hired in December, then they do submit their life insurance enrollments by deadline, then their life insurance would be effective February 1st, the first of the month after they've completed 30 days of eligible employment. Now, after you have submitted your elections, if you're able to do so online, a confirmation statement will be posted there 24 to 48 hours later. You should go out to review that confirmation statement, make sure that everything looks correct, and if anything were wrong, let us know right away. But assuming all is well, then that is your receipt to show that, yes, we received your choices and they will be in place. If you have to submit paper applications, Then while there isn't a confirmation statement that's posted as quickly, once we have been able to manually enter the paper application forms that you provided to us, then you'll be able to go out and view your benefits summary detail and see the coverage that is in place for you. So there is a delay to kind of confirming that your paper applications have been processed, but never fear, once they are, you'll be able to still see the review of the benefits that you hold on your summary page. You'll also want to confirm your earning statements are correct, looking at your rate of pay, the hours for which you've been paid, and any insurance premium deductions. Because for any of the insurance plans that you enroll into, there will be a cost associated with the deduction out of your paycheck. In some cases, you pay the entire amount for any benefits that you elect. In other cases, the employer pays a share and you pay a share. But in either case, you will see that reflected on the earning statements once you begin to have those deductions withheld. And so speaking of paychecks, we at the UW are paid bi-weekly every other Thursday. And if you're working a full calendar year, then that is 26 times a year. Again, paid every other Thursday, unless that happens to be a holiday, in which case they make an adjustment. Now, for the insurance benefits that you elect, know that, again, each of them has a cost associated with them, and so you will want to watch your earning statements to see the benefit premiums being collected from your paychecks. Our monthly insurance premiums are split evenly between your first and second check every month. So the first paycheck you are paid every month pays for the first half of that month's coverage, and the second paycheck you receive in a month pays for the rest of that month's coverage. So for example, new employees starting in late December 2023 could expect their first paycheck to be paid to them on January 11th, and that would pay for the first part of January's coverage. And then their second paycheck received in January would be on the January 25th check that would pay for the rest of that month's coverage. And then the first and second checks of February, the first and second checks of March, etc., on and on, are paying for those months' premiums. As a new hire, it may, depending upon timing, take a few paychecks to catch up on any premiums that might be due. Again, it comes down to how near that 30-day deadline do you submit your elections? How quickly can we get them entered into our system? Were they electronically sent over through the portal, or did you have to submit an email over paper copies? And then where in the pay cycle we might happen to be. Sometimes there might need to be a catch-up on premiums that are due, but if that happens to you, never fear. Eventually you'll begin to see the regular biweekly deductions taking from your checks. And if you were reviewing your paychecks and ever had a question of what was coming out of them, just reach out to your payroll and benefit coordinator within your own unit, and they will be able to assist you. Next up, we are talking about retirement plans being offered to us as UW-Madison, Wisconsin Retirement System eligible participants. There are additional details about these plans in and through our website, but I will provide you with an overview right now. Starting with the Wisconsin Retirement System itself, this is a pension program that those of us who are state employees must participate in if we're eligible. And practically speaking, that means that a certain percentage of our pay, every time we're paid, will be withheld off the top of our checks pre-tax, and it will be sent over to be invested in the Wisconsin Retirement System. The percentage they're collecting from our checks in 2024 is 6.9%. So you'll begin to see that coming out of your paychecks in 2024. Now, the money that is in the system is being administered by employee trust funds. They're in charge of this program, and the money is being invested by SWIB, the State of Wisconsin Investment Board. And you have access to both of these entities to reach out to their member services lines and review their websites for the information that you might be interested in. As an overview of the types of investments they make for us, there is by default a core trust fund where all of your investment and the employer match are being sent to be invested. And it is highly diversified. It is about half stock, but it's also real estate and other cash investments. And unless you say otherwise, all of your and the employer match are going to the core trust fund. It will have a 5-year smoothing over its effective rate year by year. So however good or poor that year may have performed, it is that particular year's number, as well as the 4 years before it, that are smoothed in a way might call it an average. It's not exactly the same, but they're smoothed together to create the actual effective rate that changes the dollars in each of our accounts year by year. Now, alternatively, there is the optional variable fund that you could choose to be part of if you'd like to. If you want to be part of the variable fund, you have to submit a form to employee trust funds to tell them that you want in. And by doing so, then you would still have 50% of your money and 50% of the employer match going to be invested in the core trust fund with its 5-year smoothing. But then the other 50% of the money would be invested in the variable fund. And it is primarily stock, mostly domestic stock, and it does not have a smoothing mechanism imposed over it as does the core trust fund. So good years can be very good years under the variable fund, or poor years can be very poor years under the variable fund performance. If I slip to the next slide here, we can see that if you're only ever part of the core, all of your contributions in the employer match always have this smoothing over them. If you are part of both the core and the variable, there's a part of your money that's always smoothed, but then the other part, the part that you're sending to the variable fund, could have high highs or low lows year by year by year, just based on how that year performed. Some people prefer the core fund and only ever are part of the core fund. Others are happy to be part of the variable, knowing that its history has shown it to perform well compared to the core. Just knowing that year by year, sometimes the core will be higher than the variable, sometimes the variable will be higher than the core. Each year could be different. If you decide to be part of the variable, then you would submit the election to participate in the variable trust fund form to employee trust funds, and they would enroll you. And then you can be part of the variable for as long as you'd like, perhaps for all of your life, or perhaps for only a certain length of time. If you ever decide to cancel your variable participation, there is another form that you would complete and send to employee trust funds to remove yourself from the variable. And you could move all of your money back to the core if you'd like to, and then just be part of the core after that. Sometimes, for example, people choose to do that as they near retirement. Other times, people who are near to retirement, but who need to perhaps they're interested in collecting as many funds as possible, they might choose to remain in the variable fund. Even though it's riskier, it still may have a higher payoff. So you have your own choice to make there. You can be part of the core alone or part of the core and the variable, and you can decide which you want. Whether or not you're part of both the core and variable or only just the core, you could choose in your future to make additional contributions into the Wisconsin retirement system if you would like. These additional contributions are after-tax contributions, and there is no employer match. So it would just be your own additional taxable money being sent to the employee trust funds WRS account for yourself and investing the money as your other accounts have been invested. Regardless of whether you're part of both the core and the variable, or whether you're making additional contributions or not, you are part of the WRS, and so you have an account that is building a cash value. You are contributing money into it each paycheck, and the university is matching that amount, and so you will want to have on record with employee trust funds a beneficiary form, so that if you were to pass away before you retire, ETF knows who owns the money that has been invested in the WRS on your behalf. There are 2 different versions of the beneficiary designation form. You can complete either one and send it directly over to employee trust funds. And then if you ever change your mind about which of those beneficiaries you want to receive the money, you can just submit a new form, and the new version trumps the old one. And you can just always update ETF whenever your mind changes about who your beneficiaries will be. We at the UW offer 3 different retirement information sessions that you're welcome to join at any time during your employment. We have them kind of separated out by perhaps ideal timelines along your career of when they might be especially appropriate to visit. So you might visit the starting to save information session if you have 15 or more years before you retire. You might visit the mid-career when you are within 15 to 5 years of retirement, and you might visit the ready to retire session when you're nearer to retirement within 5 years. But truly, you are welcome to join any and all of them whenever you find that it would be of interest to you, just to learn more about the options that surround retirement from the UW. Now, you may have a retirement plan from a former employer that has a balance, and you may want to move that money out from your former employer's account and into a new account through the UW. While the Wisconsin retirement system does not accept roll-ins, you can always open and then roll in money from a former employer's account to the UW's 403B or to the state's 457B. These are both programs that you have available to you as a UW-Madison employee, and the 403 and the 457 both accept roll-in money. Now, you may open one or the other of these two optional accounts. You could open both accounts if you would like to. Many employees actually do contribute to both, and their maximum contributions for 2024 are $23,000, unless you're turning 50 or older this year, in which case you can contribute up to $30,500. Each of these programs has its own enrollment method. There's an easy enrollment form to get started with the UW's 403B, or there's an online plan enrollment code to find, and then you can register on the state's 457B website. Either way, if you do open one of these accounts and begin to participate, you can always increase or decrease or pause and then restart your contributions whenever you would like. All right, next up, we have our health insurance options. And of course, our website has details about the health insurance programs. Questions that my office hears are about the cost to participate in the programs themselves, the limitations of which doctors you can visit, the types of services that are covered, and then what your share of the cost of services would be when you're actually at the hospital or stopping in at a doctor's office for an office visit. And how much all of these things cost you will depend on which of the health plan options you choose. So there are 4 different health plan designs. 2 of them are traditional style plans where there are low deductibles, there are office copays, and these include the IYC health plan. That's the It's Your Choice health plan, and I'll just call that the health plan going forward. And then there's the access plan. A difference between these two are that the health plan is Wisconsin-based, and they ask you to choose a certain group of doctors to be your doctors for the year, and you only visit those doctors. If you go outside of the network, you don't have coverage unless it was for an emergency. While if you elect the access plan, it actually does have doctors in all the different counties of Wisconsin, but it also has doctors in all the various states of the United States, and it allows you to seek services out of network, which can include out of country. It's just that they offer less coverage if you're out of network compared to if you were choosing one of their in-network providers. But so these are kind of traditional copay style plans. The other 2 options are those versions, but with high deductible health plans and health savings accounts. So we have the Wisconsin-based high deductible health plan, and we have the nationwide access high deductible health plan. In either case, you have to be able to open the health savings account in order to enroll and participate in these HDHPs. Now, before I get into the detail about the health coverage itself, I will mention that should you enroll in one of the health plans, each of those plan options has an and dental option. So you can elect plain health insurance, or you can pay a few more dollars a month and have preventive dental attached to your health election. This would provide you and your covered family members with your routine cleanings and exams. Fillings are covered at 100%. Even children's orthodontia is covered at 50%, up to $1,500 per child's mouth. So that orthodontia coverage could be very useful if you have smaller children needing the ortho work. Now, this program is through Delta Dental, and you can reach right out to them on their website to learn more about this insurance, or take a closer look at our website for the details. What you will pay for health insurance each month depends then on which of the 4 health designs you want to elect, and then whether you're electing coverage just for yourself as the individual, or whether you're extending it to others, which would mean a family election, and then whether or not you're electing the coverage with or without that preventive uniform dental attached. So if you wanted the Wisconsin-based health insurance and it's just for yourself, but you want the preventive dental as part of it, you would pay $115 per month for that individual coverage. Or if you did have other members of your family that you're covering, the family coverage would be $286 a month. Now, the high deductible versions of those Wisconsin plans are less expensive, $42 a month or $107 a month. The nationwide access plans are more expensive because, again, they have doctors not just here in one single county of Wisconsin, but they have doctors across the entire state and across the entire nation. And really, you could visit any doctor anywhere to receive, covered medical care, even if it's out of network. You would pay more than what's quoted on this page if you are a new university staff employee and you're choosing to start your health insurance before you have 2 months of WRS state service, or if you work less than half-time, you would pay more than these prices quoted. And I'll give you more information on that as we carry on. But for the most part, these are the premiums down here below that participants would pay. Now, many of our employees who work here at the UW-Madison choose one of the Wisconsin-based plans as their group of doctors for the year. And if that were true for you, then again, whether it's the health plan or the high deductible version, you would go into the website. When you're choosing your network as of providers, you would look for the actual name of the doctor group that you want to be your doctors for the year, and then commit to visiting only that chosen network unless it was an emergency. Here in Dane County, that usually means our employees are either choosing between the Dean Health Plan or the GHC of South Central Wisconsin Dane Choice, or the Courts UW Health networks. Those three are offering doctors right here in Dane County, where the UW-Madison is located. You, of course, may be living or planning to seek services in other parts of Wisconsin, and so you can review Employee Trust Fund's decision guide or ETF's health plan search on their webpage to review other doctors groups in other parts of Wisconsin and make sure that you choose as your enrollment the group of doctors that will be conveniently located for you and your family. And even if you live just outside the state of Wisconsin, there may still be a Wisconsin-based health plan that extends over the border into surrounding states, like over into the Twin Cities or over into Northern Illinois, for example. Just take a look at ETF's health plan search webpage to learn more about those kind of nearby options that would still only cost as much as the Wisconsin-based plans. They may work well for you. Otherwise, if you do need a plan that is outside the state of Wisconsin, maybe you or your family travel all the time, or maybe you live outside of the state of Wisconsin, then the Access Plan is the option. They offer in-network providers through Dean here in southern Wisconsin, and then with First Health everywhere else in Wisconsin and nationwide. And even if you were to go outside of the network, then you still do have some coverage. It doesn't have to be an emergency. It could just be because you wanted to see that out-of-network doctor, you could visit them and still have some coverage. So the Access Plan and its high deductible version do cost more to be part of, but they have this large flexible network. To choose the group that is best for you, you'll want to consider who your current medical providers might be and whether they are in any of these networks that are being offered. If you're willing to start over, you might simply just want to look for a group of doctors that is offering a clinic near to where you live or where you work so that it's convenient to visit. You might give them a call or look on their website to learn more about what telemedicine services they offer or to which hospitals they would send you if you needed surgery. Any of that might help you make your decision. And once you have decided if you're enrolling in one particular plan versus another, and now you're visiting your in-network provider for preventive care, so your routine annual checkup, your well woman visit, your children's well child checkups, those preventive services are covered 100% with no cost to you. Even certain prescriptions, if you fill them at your in-network pharmacy, certain things like contraceptives would be covered 100% because of the Affordable Care Act. And you can read more about these types of preventive services on healthcare.gov. You can also read more about preventive care and what is covered in our plan schedule of benefits that you'll find online. Now, if you need care that is not preventive, that is where we need to begin to talk about copays and deductibles, coinsurance, and out-of-pocket limits, maximum out-of-pockets. So that's what's coming up next here. And we'll start with our traditional style plans, the health plan and the access plan. For these types of insurance choices, if you're going in for your office visit, if it's a preventive care office visit and it's billed as preventive visit, then you pay nothing for that office visit. If you're going in to see a primary care provider, which could be your PA, your chiropractor, your OBGYN, your children's pediatrician, your mental health counselor, then that office visit charge will be $15 to you. And then the doctor might charge, $200 for their services, but you paid your share when you paid $15, and the insurance company would take care of the difference for those primary care office visits. Or if you were visiting a specialist for an office visit consultation, then your office visit copay is $25. And then even if they charge $300 for their specialty services, you paid your share when you paid your $25, and then the insurance company would pay the remainder for that office visit consult. If you do need to visit the emergency room, and rather than admitting you to the hospital and keeping you there, they instead kind of fix you up and then send you on your way, then as part of the hospital bill you'll receive, you'll also have a $75 emergency room copay. But next, let's talk about the annual deductible, because sometimes a simple office visit discussion isn't all you need. You might need x-rays, you might need diagnostic labs, or you might need a surgical procedure, whether that's an in-office surgical procedure or actually an in-hospital surgical procedure. And for these types of services, you owe the first $250 of those charges every time you incur them the start of every year. So you pay the first $250 per person per year for these x-rays, diagnostic labs, and surgical procedures. If you do have those types of services and you then meet your $250 deductible, then for the rest of the calendar year, the remaining bills for other x-rays, diagnostic labs, surgical procedures, you will pay only 10% of the cost, and the insurance company will cover the other 90%. Or if it's durable medical equipment that you're receiving, such as a wrist brace or a set of crutches, then you pay 20% of the cost of that equipment, and the insurance company pays 80%. For the covered services in network, if you end up with enough office visit copays and you've met your deductible, you're paying your 10% coinsurance, and you end up being billed $1,250 for those covered in-network services, that is your out-of-pocket limit. That is the most you could be billed for those in-network covered services in a year. So no more than $1,250 per person per year for those covered in-network services. Now, somewhat separately are pharmacy benefits. Our pharmacy coverage is through a company called Navitus, and you can visit Navitus's website and see their formulary, which is a list of the drugs that they cover, as well as the drugs that they do not cover, and what level their covered drugs are part of. So here, you'll see that each different level of pharmacy benefits has a different cost to you. So preventive drugs, such as contraceptives, you pay nothing for those. But for other drugs at level 1, you pay $5 when you fill them at your network pharmacy. Or for level 2s, you pay 20% of the cost of the drug, up to as much as $50, but not more than $50. Level 3 and level 4 drugs are more expensive. Level 3s, you'd pay 40% of the cost of the drug, up to $150, and the difference in the cost between that more expensive level 3 drug and the alternate less expensive option. Level 4 drugs, you pay $50 for them, and you have to fill them through the UW specialty pharmacy or through Lumicera. And there are out-of-pocket limits for your prescriptions as well. So if you're filling level 1 and level 2 drugs, at most, you would pay no more than $600 per person per year for those level 1 and level 2s. Or if you're filling level 3 or level 4s, you actually continue to pay for those whenever you fill them at the pharmacy until you've spent quite a lot, as much as $9,100 per person per year for those more expensive drugs. Now, the pharmacy benefits also include vaccinations if you receive them at your in-network pharmacy for free. And this can save you a bit of money compared to making a doctor's appointment to receive a vaccination and then also having to pay the office visit copay. You could simply go to your in-network pharmacy and receive a vaccination there for free. Now, if you're on the health plan and you need to seek care out of network, the only services that are covered out of network are for emergency or urgent care needs. Examples of emergency care are severe allergic reactions and asthma attacks, convulsions, severe bleeding, acute appendicitis, heart attack, stroke. Those are the types of things where if you don't receive immediate care, you may die within the hour. So those examples of emergency care, you can go to the nearest emergency room to receive the life-saving care that you need. What is not usually an emergency are fevers and dental pain, sore throats, ear pain, headaches. Those are generally not considered emergencies, and you might start with a call to your primary care provider if you're experiencing those issues and want to be seen by your doctor. Now, some examples of urgent care where you absolutely are uncomfortable and ill and need care, but you might have a day before things really get bad. Broken bones, cuts, sprains, drug reactions, burns. It's ideal to visit your in-network urgent care clinic if you are in your network service area. And in fact, I should restate that. You must use your in-network urgent care clinic if you are in your network service area. However, if you're traveling and you're far away from your home network, then it would be all right to go to the out-of-network urgent care clinic because it would be far away and you need, urgent care. But note that there is a difference between what is considered emergency care and urgent care. And if you ever have a question about where to seek the services that you need, give a call to your insurance company or call your doctor's office and seek assistance from them. Employee Trust Funds also offers a video that describes how to get medical care when you need it fast. It does a nice job in that 3-minute video of describing where to go, depending upon the types of services that you need. Now, with the Access plan, you have the option to choose out-of-network care, even if there's no emergency. But you do pay for the privilege. You pay 100% of the first $500 per person each year for these covered out-of-network services. And then you pay 30% of any additional costs, and the insurance company pays 70%, up to $2,000 per person per year. So it is definitely more expensive to go outside of the network. However, it is allowed. So you are able to make that decision if you need to. Now, these high deductible versions of our Wisconsin-based plan and the nationwide plan are similar in many ways. However, they have a higher deductible to meet, and you must be eligible to open the health savings account in order to enroll successfully in these high deductible plans. The basics of these HDHPs are that they will cost less, a lower premium, so less from your paychecks to be part of the plans, but they have a higher deductible to meet before the insurance kicks in for non-routine preventive care. And the factor behind why many people are interested in these plans is because of the health savings account that you must open if you're enrolled into one. Because if you open the health savings account or are enrolled in the high deductible health plan, the UW contributes money into your health savings account. They send you $62.50 a month if you have the single coverage, or you're sent $125 a month if you have the family coverage. Now, for your preventive care, those are still your routine annual checkups, your children's well baby care, certain prescriptions like contraceptives filled at your network pharmacy. Those are all still covered 100% because of the Affordable Care Act. And again, you can read more about that in their preventive services section. But for services that are not considered preventive, if you are enrolled in the high deductible health plans, you are responsible for the full negotiated cost for your initial prescription drugs that you fill at your pharmacy, for your office visit charges, for any x-rays and diagnostic labs and surgical procedures. Keep in mind that this does include prescription drugs as your initial responsibility. You pay 100% of their negotiated cost. It's only if you meet the high deductible, so you have enough services to be charged at least $1,600 if you're on the single plan, or $3,200 if you're on the family plan. Only then would the insurance begin to pay a share of the remaining bills, so that for the rest of the year, there are office visit copays or there are prescription copays and coinsurance, up to an out-of-pocket limit. So the out-of-pocket limit for these high deductible plans is $2,500 if you have a single policy, or it's $5,000 if you're covered by family insurance. And so this would be at most what you would pay for the years in network office visits, medical care, durable medical equipment, and prescription drugs. So keep in mind these totals, especially if you are filling level 3 and level 4 prescription drugs with Navitus. This is a combined limit, the $2,500 or the $5,000, that could be lower than the drug limits for level 3 and level 4 drugs under the other kind of standard typical types of insurance. Also with the health savings accounts, you have to open one in order to be part of these high deductible health plans. And then into your account every month, the UW will contribute money. You can contribute your own contributions as well if you'd like to, and not be taxed on the contributions that you send to the account. But you're not required to send money to the account. You can simply accept the employer's money if that's all you want to accept. And then if you do incur expenses and you are looking for a way to pay for those medical or prescription bills, you could dip into your health savings account in order to pay for your medical or prescription costs. This is a comparison chart of the health savings accounts that you must open if you're going to be on the high deductible health plans. And we're comparing them to the health flexible spending accounts, or FSAs, that sometimes more employees are familiar with. So you can come back to this slide if you want to compare and contrast the two. They sound similar, HSA and FSA, but they are different types of accounts with different rules. There are rules about who is eligible to enroll in the high deductible health plans. For example, you must not be claimed as a dependent on someone else's taxes. Filing with someone else as their spouse is acceptable, but not being claimed as a dependent by one's parent, for example. You cannot be covered by other non-high deductible health plan coverage or through a health FSA through your spouse or parents. And you have to be approved for and open the health savings account with Optum in order to participate and be part of a high deductible health plan. With the Wisconsin-based HDHP coverage, you still need to remain within your network unless it's for emergency coverage. Then it's okay to have gone out of network because of that emergency. With the Access plan, you may choose to go outside of a network if you'd like to, but then it's an even higher deductible to meet and a higher out-of-pocket limit to hit before you've reached the out-of-pocket limits for the year. So it would be a $2,000 deductible if you're on a single plan, or a $4,000 deductible if you're on the family plan, you're going out of network. And then you pay 30% of remaining bills, up to $3,800 if you're on the single plan, or $7,600 if you're on the family plan. You can read more about what's considered to be emergency care versus urgent care, essentially when it's allowed to go out of network, in the Plan Certificate of Coverage. These are available on Employee Trust Fund's website. And reading through the Certificate of Coverage is an important part of getting to know your health insurance. It gives you an idea of both what is covered by your insurance as well as what is excluded. And those are both important things to know about your insurance coverage every year. In order to find more information about the state group health insurance, you can go to Employee Trust Fund's website. They have, again, that search function to look at different Wisconsin counties. They also have the contact information for each of the different health plans, and they have an FAQ section, because no doubt, if you have a question in mind, so have other employees, and ETF attempts to answer them online in their FAQ section. As a review, in order to choose the best plan for yourself and your family for the coming year, I would recommend taking a look at Employee Trust Fund's video about choosing plan designs. It'll talk through the nationwide versus the Wisconsin-based programs, and it talks about the low traditional style plan versus the high deductible health plan options and how they are similar and different. ETF also has a health plan quality page where you can see what previous participants rated and scored their health plans in the past. That may help you make your decision. And ultimately, you will want to be certain that whichever health plan you choose for the year will be conveniently located, near to where you live or where you're planning to seek services. You don't want to accidentally choose a network that's far up north in Wisconsin if you live down south in Wisconsin, because then you'll be driving a far way in order to see the doctors that you've chosen for the year. Once you've made your choices, you have made your choices for that year. So choose wisely. Now, it could be that you are not, in fact, interested in enrolling in the state's health insurance for 2024. In that case, you might consider applying for the opt-out incentive. The opt-out incentive, if you apply for it and are approved, means that you are paid $166 per month. It's extra taxable income added to your paychecks. It is not WRS income, so it will not have that 6.9% withheld. It's just extra taxable income. And this is an election that you have to reconsider and re-elect every year if you want it, year after year. So watch during our annual fall enrollment periods for this opportunity to re-elect again the opt-out incentive if it has been what you've chosen as a new employee. Then here is just a quick example of who may be eligible versus not eligible for the opt-out incentive. If your spouse or parent is not a state WRS employee and you're on their health insurance, then yes, you may be eligible for the opt-out incentive. If your spouse or parent is a state of Wisconsin WRS participant and you are covered by their state of Wisconsin health insurance, then you will not be eligible for the opt-out incentive because you are covered by the state's health insurance. It's just through their policy. But if your state WRS parent is not covering you on their health insurance, then yes, you may be eligible for the opt-out incentive. And you can read more about that on ETF's website. Now, whichever you've chosen, whether you're enrolling into or opting out of or waiving the various insurance plans, you will make your decisions known by visiting the MyUW portal, logging in and visiting the benefit information tile and clicking through that Enroll Now button. You'll be taken to an enrollment page where you can click on Health to start, and you'll see a bunch of different health plans listed. And the default election for each year would be set as a new employee, would be set as waived. And you'll want to click off of that if you don't actually want to waive health insurance. For example, you might want to elect the opt-out incentive. And in that case, you want to click off of the waive and instead select the health insurance opt-out incentive as your election for the coming year. Or if you want to enroll in health insurance and you want the nationwide plan, you'll select the Access-in-state plan. Now, I know that sounds odd that the Access-in-state language is there, but even though it says in-state, that is the nationwide access plan with Dean and First Health. So that would be the correct choice if you want the nationwide coverage. Or if you want one of the Wisconsin-based plans, then you look for the name of the network that you'd like. In the example on the screen, we just chose alphabetically. The first one here in Dane County is Dean, and that's the version that this screen is showing. Also, though, in Dane County are the GHC South Central Wisconsin Dane Choice or the Quartz UW Health Networks. If you find you can't select your choices and send them to us online, then you'll want to look up the health insurance application change form, complete it, and submit it to your HR office. And then they will provide it to my office for processing. There is a section on that insurance application where it asks whether you're wanting to receive the opt-out incentive. So this is how you would apply for the opt-out incentive if you were applying for it for 2024. Otherwise, if you were enrolling in the health insurance, There would be, in this section 5, a place where you would mark whether you wanted the high deductible health plan or not, whether you want individual and family coverage, whether you want it with or without the preventive uniform dental, and then also which of the health plan networks you want, whether it's that access plan with its nationwide coverage or one of the other Wisconsin-based plans. Now, when your health insurance will begin, again, depends in part on the type of employment you hold at the UW. So again, if you are academic staff or university staff, but not sure which, review your appointment letter. And then here is what you may expect for when your health insurance would begin if you're enrolling. If you are faculty, academic staff, or a limited appointee, your coverage would be effective the first of the month on or following your first day of eligible appointment. So if your start date were January 1st, your health insurance would be effective that very day, January 1st, as long as we received your application by January 31st, by that 30-day deadline. Otherwise, if your start date were January 2nd, you would have 30 days from that day, which in this case would be February 1st, to submit your choice to us. And I apologize, coverage would then be effective February 1st. If you are university staff, on the other hand, you may have an option of when your health insurance will begin. The first option requires you to use a paper application. Even if you could submit it online, you'd want to submit paper to tell us that you want your health insurance to start the first of the month on or following your first day of eligible employment. Otherwise, if you want option 2, you can either complete your election online or submit paper. Either way works, online or paper, for option 2. So let me give you an example of what this looks like using dates. Here we have Jane. Jane is university staff with no previous state WRS service. Jane's first day of employment is January 2nd. Jane has options of when her health insurance will begin. Either she can use a paper application and mark that she wants her health insurance to start as soon as possible, and her health insurance will be effective February 1st, the first of the month following hire. That's option 1. Or Jane could use online or paper to elect her health insurance, and she will take the coverage to start when the UW will begin to contribute and help her pay for the premiums, which in this example means that April 1st is when her coverage would begin. She would not have coverage for February or March. Instead, as of April 1st is when her coverage would begin, and she'd begin to pay the smaller share of the premium. If she instead wants her coverage to start sooner, that February 1st date, she has to pay the full premium cost for the coverage months of February and March. Here's an example of those full state group health premium costs for 2024. The access plan, it's about $1,500 a month if you want single coverage, or it's almost $4,000 a month if you want family coverage. Otherwise, the Wisconsin-based plans are more like $900 a month if it's single coverage, or just over $2,000 a month if it's family coverage. So those would be the full premiums that Jane would pay, for example, if she wanted her coverage to start as soon as possible. Otherwise, if Jane was okay with waiting until the UW contributed its premium, then these are the premiums that Jane would pay. And we've seen these before. Again, the Wisconsin-based plans, $115 a month if it's just you and the policy, or $286 a month if you're covering family, or the other premiums based on whether you want the high deductible or the nationwide options. Now, if you are working less than half-time, or you hold only one single university staff temporary appointment, then you would pay 50% of the month's total premium, and the UW would pay the other 50%. So of those $900 a month for single coverage, for example, if you work less than half-time, you would pay half of that $900 bill, the UW would pay the other half of the $900 bill. You'd each be paying about $450 every month for your coverage. But that's only for those who work these lower hours or have just a single temporary appointment. If you do choose to enroll in the health insurance, you will receive at least 2, if not 3 ID cards. You'll get a card from your insurance network, and then you'll get a second card from Navitus to give to your pharmacy when you fill prescriptions. If you selected the and dental election option, then you'll also receive a third card from Delta Dental to give to your dentist when you have your teeth cleanings and exams. And these health insurance ID cards are mailed to you directly by the insurance companies, and they'll arrive potentially 4 weeks after your enrollment is processed. Be sure that your home and mailing addresses are updated in our system, and update them whenever you do have a move so that the insurance companies know what your correct mailing address will be. And if you find that you do need to seek medical care or fill a prescription before your ID cards have arrived, then we have 3 slides that can be part of a PDF copy of this presentation deck, whether it's visible right now to you on the website or whether you want to email us to ask for a copy. I'm not sure how the website will be updated this year, but there are some slides that give examples of how to use the insurance even before you have ID cards. So you could just let us know if you need copies of those slides. And next up, we have disability insurance. The state of Wisconsin calls this income continuation insurance. You'll find more information about it on our website in the disability section. This disability insurance, should you become disabled, meaning you're too injured or too ill to do your job at the UW, and you meet certain plan requirements, such as you were enrolled in the coverage, you have been disabled for a long enough time, and you've exhausted your sick leave, then this ICI benefit can begin to pay you up to 75% of your previous income, thereby keeping you in a pay status so that you have money coming into your household and you can hopefully continue to pay your housing costs and your medical bills as needed. Usually the ICI plan will continue to pay you for as long as you're disabled, all the way up to retirement age. It depends in part on when you became disabled, how long they'll actually continue the payment. There are 2 types of the ICI disability plan. There's a program for university staff, and then there's a slightly separate program for faculty and academic staff. Now, if you're university staff, your ICI benefit will have a 30-day elimination period, which means you need to be disabled for at least 30 days before the program might consider paying you any money. Under the faculty and academic staff plan, when you're enrolling in that program, you're either choosing a 30-day elimination period, so you have to be disabled for at least 30 days before the program might pay you, or you could choose a longer 90-day, 125-day, or 180-day elimination period. Now, in any case, regardless of the elimination period, you have 2 things to meet before the program might send you money. You have to meet your elimination period and exhaust your sick leave. Or if you have a lot of sick leave, you could, because you've been working for years, you have to use at least 130 days of sick leave. And then if you have 140 days of sick leave saved, you don't have to use those extra 10 days of sick leave, but you have to use the first 130 up or until they're exhausted if you had fewer hours. ICI will cost each of us slightly different amounts because it depends in part on the type of employment you hold, and it also can depend on how much money you earn, as well as sometimes either how much sick leave you have or which of the elimination periods you've chosen. So take a look at our website and you'll see the charts that will help you understand what you would pay if you were to enroll in the ICI plan. If you are faculty or academic staff, and you're enrolling in the ICI program, you may have a choice of when your ICI will begin. If you're able to enroll online, you'll see both an early ICI option or kind of the plain regular income continuation option. If you choose the early ICI, then your ICI coverage will be effective the first of the month on or following your first day of WRS employment. And should you become disabled then within that first year or after, you both serve your elimination period and exhaust your sick leave, and then you could be eligible for the ICI benefit. The other option is option 2, where your coverage for ICI could begin the first of the month after you have 12 months of WRS state service. So initially, you may not have ICI for the first year of your employment. Only after you've completed 12 months of state service, then would you begin to be part of the ICI plan. Then if you became disabled, may be eligible for a benefit. So you could look and see whether you're eligible for the early ICI plan or just choose the kind of regular ICI plan if you want it instead. By choosing the early option, you pay the full premium until you have met your 12 months of state service. The UW doesn't contribute their share until you've had 12 months of service, which is why they give you the option of enrolling early or just waiting until the WS or the UW will begin to pay towards the premiums. Now for university staff, coverage will begin the first day of the month on or following your first day of eligible employment, and the university kicks in their share of the premiums straight away. We often have employees ask about delivering a child and whether that might be an ICI disabling event. And it could be. Yes, often doctors will say that a parent is disabled for 6 weeks after a delivery. It could even be 8 weeks if you had a surgical delivery. But as with any disability claim, before the ICI benefit could be paid to you, the claimant must both serve their elimination period and exhaust their sick leave. So it is possible, depending upon the type of ICI plan that you choose to elect into and how long you're disabled, you may or may not need to receive a benefit or be able to receive a benefit from the ICI plan. For example, if you have enough sick leave saved to remain in full pay status for the course of your disability, for that full 6 weeks or 8 weeks, then the ICI benefit wouldn't kick in because you'd been using your sick leave instead for full income replacement. Or if you had enrolled in an ICI plan with a lengthier elimination period, and instead, this is a relatively short-term disability, you may no longer be disabled by the time the elimination period would have been met. And if you choose a 90-day or a 125-day elimination period, and you're only disabled for 6 weeks, then you are no longer disabled by the time that 90-day or 125-day comes around. There are limited opportunities to pick up this ICI disability coverage. You're welcome to it as a new employee, as long as you're enrolling within your first 30 days. You want it, you've got it. However, if you don't enroll now, there may be a limited deferred enrollment available to you in your future. For example, you might be invited to join in the future based on how much sick leave you've earned, but that could be few or far between options. The other possibility would be through applying by evidence of insurability, meaning that you're answering medical questions and giving the insurance company access to your doctor's office. And then they, after doing a medical review, may or may not decide to allow you a late enrollment. So I can't guarantee that you'll be offered a deferred enrollment. I can't guarantee that you'll be accepted through evidence of insurability. I can just offer this new employee enrollment opportunity as a guarantee. And if you want in, now is a good time to seriously consider the ICI disability enrollment. Next up, we have our life insurance optional plans. There are 2 different optional state group life and individual family life insurance plans that you could elect. And then there are some other plans that I'll mention as well. Now, life insurance can be important if you were to pass away. It can leave money to someone upon your death. That could help them continue to afford the mortgage or to provide for your child's future education expenses, or potentially just to leave a charitable gift to an entity or group that you had volunteered for, but now won't be around to assist any longer. Life insurance is offered then considered by those who have someone in their lives who rely upon them and their earnings for at least in part to pay their bills, or just to cover the cost of a funeral so that no one has to come up with the money in order to bury you if you were to pass away. If you do decide to enroll in a life insurance plan, be sure to submit a beneficiary designation form to the insurance companies so that if you die, they know whom should receive the money. And the UW's beneficiary designation forms are online. You'll be able to find them listed, if not on the website that's on the screen, then just by shooting us an email and asking for the live link. We're happy to share that with you. Now, there are two optional life insurance plans you could elect as a new employee. There's the state group life insurance and the individual and family life insurance. The state group life is offered by the state of Wisconsin. The individual and family life is offered by the UW. Each of them has a cost that will be based in part on your age. They do become more expensive as you grow older. And each of them has an amount of coverage that you could elect. You could elect a small amount or a larger amount. So what you will pay for the coverage depends in part on how much of the coverage you want. But then the state group life insurance also bases part of its cost on your income. Someone who earns a higher income will often pay more in premiums than someone who earns a lower income. The state group life and the individual and family life insurances also offer coverage for your family members. So if you do have a spouse or children, or in the individual and family case, a domestic partner, you could elect coverage for them. You are welcome to join the state group life and the individual and family life plans as a new employee. This is your time. During your first 30 days, you can enroll. If you do not enroll in one of these timely, then you have waived them by default. And if then in the future you apply late after your first 30 days, you could apply through evidence of insurability, sharing your medical information, and then wait to see whether the insurance companies accept your late application. But there is no specific guarantee that they will approve it. They might deny it. Or the state group life insurance alone would allow you to pick up one unit on your own life if you apply within 30 days of a marriage or a birth or adoption of a child. So there are very limited future opportunities to enroll in coverage. Now there's another policy called University Insurance Association, or UIA life insurance, that is only for faculty and academic staff. And if you are faculty, academic staff, then you'll be evaluated for this UIA life insurance. And if you qualify for it, then you'll be enrolled in the coming January. The cost has been $38.40 for an entire year, from January 1st through December 31st. And as I said, you will be evaluated and enrolled if you're eligible. If you are not eligible, then you will not be enrolled and you will not see the deduction come out of your future January paychecks. There are more details about these life insurance plans on our website, and we also have a resource through Securian to run a calculation of how much life insurance is enough for someone. So you're welcome to either follow that hyperlink through the copy of the slides or email my office and just ask us for this resource, and we're happy to share it with you. If you do enroll in the life insurance, then the coverage would begin the first of the month following 30 days of employment. So in the example on the screen, if a date of hire were January 2nd, then life insurance could be effective March 1st. All right, next up, we have our accidental death and dismemberment plan and the state's accident insurance. So the AD&D policy is through the UW, and it's with a company called Zurich. The accident plan is through the state of Wisconsin with a company called Securian. You'll find more detail about these policies on our website. I'll start by describing the UW's AD&D plan with Zurich. This is a policy that allows you to elect coverage on your own life and to extend it to your family if you'd like to. And then in the event that you were to be dismembered or to die because of an accident, a benefit would be paid to you if you were still living or to your beneficiaries if you had passed away. So you could elect as little as $25,000 on your own life, all the way up to $500,000 on your own life. And again, you could extend that to cover your family members if you would like to. If you do purchase coverage for your family, this is a plan that allows coverage for a domestic partner or a legal spouse or dependent children. And if it were they who were dismembered or killed in an accident, then a percentage of the coverage you'd elected on your own life is what you would receive as the payout because of their dismembering or death. With the AD&D policy, you have to file your own claims with Zurich. So if you do enroll in this plan, don't forget that you have it. Let your family know that you're enrolled, and then let my office know if you ever had questions about how the program works. But essentially, if there were to be an accident and someone were killed or dismembered, then you would call Zurich to request a claim form, and then you would complete the paperwork and send it to Zurich to receive the benefit. There is also a travel assistance program and an identity theft assistance program bundled into this AD&D policy. So those come basically free of charge if you're enrolling in the AD&D policy. The other accident plan is through the state of Wisconsin, and it's with a company called Securian. The cost for this accident insurance for 2024 is listed on the screen, and it's based on the people in your family whom you've decided to cover, which could just be yourself, or it could be yourself and a legal spouse, it could be yourself and your children, or it could be the full family. This accident insurance would allow you, if you were injured because of an accident and had to seek medical care, it would allow you to submit a claim and then receive a benefit from Securian. So if you were to be injured, you didn't have to be dismembered, just injured enough that you needed to seek medical care because of an accident, then you could make your submission to Securian. This slide gives you an example of what an accident claim might look like. So we have an employee who fell off a ladder. They ended up with a broken leg and a broken wrist. They had to ride to the ER in an ambulance and stay in the hospital for 2 days. For each of those type of accidental pieces, they ended up receiving an amount of $3,300 as the payment from Securian. And then they used their money however they would like. In this example, they used it to pay for childcare and a dog sitter. But of course, you could use your money on whatever you would like. Again, with this accident plan, you must file your own claims directly with Securian. So you would either go onto their website or give them a call if you or a covered family member were injured or needed medical care because of an accident, and then submit the claim directly to them. And here next up, we have dental insurance. We've already introduced the Preventive uniform dental that can be attached to health insurance. But we also have some standalone dental insurance plans, as well as major dental plans for crowns and bridges and the like. So if you wanted to elect the standalone preventive plan, perhaps you are waiving health or opting out of health, but you still want preventive dental cleanings and exams, you could elect the preventive plan, and you'll pay $36.10 a month if it's just you with the coverage, or you'd pay $90.28 a month if you're covering anyone else on your plan with you. Or you could enroll in the Select or the Select Plus plans. These two other plans offer major dental coverage for crowns and bridges and oral surgery. You'll see on this slide the Select and the Select Plus plans side by side. Compared to the uniform dental and preventive plans, they're different. You see the uniform dental and preventive plans, they offer that routine cleaning and exam, children's fluoride treatments, but they don't cover the more major dental work like crowns and bridges and oral surgery. That's where the Select or the Select Plus plan comes in. Either one could be elected. You would have an annual deductible to meet, and then at most, the plan would pay out up to their benefit maximum. So the Select Plus plan would pay up to $1,000 per mouth per year. The Select Plus plan would pay up to $2,500 per mouth per year. And they would cover a certain percentage of crowns and bridges and implants and root canals and oral surgery. The Select Plus plan can also pay for orthodontia coverage, even for an adult. So if an older child of yours or you yourself as an adult are looking for orthodontia coverage, the Select Plus plan could be that coverage for you. They'll pay 50% of an ortho bill up to $1,500. And we also have vision insurance. It's with a company called Delta Vision. And the monthly premiums you would pay for your vision insurance depend on whom in your family you're choosing to cover, whether it's just yourself, or if it's yourself and your spouse, yourself and your children, or your full family. The vision insurance would allow you to go to one of their in-network providers, and you could have an annual routine eye exam, and you would pay a $15 copay. You could also get a basic pair of glasses by paying a $25 copay. Or if instead of eyeglasses, you wanted contact lenses, the program would give you up to $150 as an allowance to pay for contact lenses. Now you'll also see that there's an out-of-network provider column. You may choose to go out of network and then seek reimbursement for expenses you paid out of network, but it's not as generous as if you were choosing to visit their in-network providers. So you often will want to visit their in-network providers. And their network is called IMED, it's Insight Network. So you could visit IMED's website or give their member services line a call and search for the Insight Network providers in your area. They can be found nationwide. We also have flexible spending accounts. And there are kind of the primary flexible spending accounts like health and limited purpose and dependent daycare. And then there are the other called parking and transit accounts. Because these accounts are pre-tax, most of our employees are eligible, but for our university staff temporary appointees. They are not eligible for free tax benefits, so they are not eligible to participate in these flexible spending accounts. Our FSAs are run through a company called Optum. And the idea behind FSAs is that you have money withheld from your paychecks pre-tax that you were going to spend on eligible expenses anyway. But instead of coming through your paycheck, you're sending that money to your flexible spending account and then spending it directly from the FSA, from which no income taxes had been withheld. So in the example on the screen, without an FSA, by working and earning $200, you may only end up with $150 in your paycheck because payroll taxes were withheld from your paycheck. Instead, if you earned that $200 and knew you were going to spend it on a qualifying expense, such as your daycare center to watch your child while you were at work, rather than that money coming to you in your paycheck, you could send that full $200 to your dependent daycare FSA and then spend it directly from your dependent daycare FSA to reimburse yourself for money that you used to pay for childcare. Very important to note is that flexible spending accounts are meant to be spent by the end of the year, if not earlier. In the example on the screen, you see someone without an FSA who earned $200 and ended up with $150 on their paycheck. They can spend that $150 on anything or everything in that year or save it for a future year. However, if you sent your $200 pre-tax to your flexible spending account, you must use that $200 and spend it on eligible dependent care expenses before the end of the year. If you don't, you forfeit the unspent balance. Now there are the health, also known as medical FSAs. You can put up to $3,050 into your 2024 health or medical FSA and then spend the money on qualified expenses like over-the-counter items such as bandages and sunscreen, or items that were billed to you directly by your doctor for a doctor's office visit, or your portion of your deductible and coinsurance. If you have the high deductible health plan with its health savings account, but you anticipate large dental or vision expenses for the year, you might consider opening the limited purpose FSA, contributing as much as $3,050 in 2024, and then using that money to pay for your family's dental and vision needs for the year. Or there's a dependent daycare FSA, through which you could run at most $5,000 per household per year. This $5,000 cap includes any other dependent daycare FSA money that you might have already used earlier this year with another employer. So be aware, this is a $5,000 cap per household per year, not per employer per year, but actually per household. You can run the dependent daycare FSA money and be reimbursed for what you've spent on before or after school care for your children or for your elder dependents. If you do enroll in the flexible spending accounts, you'll want to register online as a new user after you've signed up for the benefit through us first. Then you can go to Optum's website and enroll as a member and download their smartphone app and use the app if you'd like to submit your claims when you have them. Your FSA would be effective the first of the month on or following your eligible hire. So if your start date and the examples on the screen were January 2nd, your FSA would be effective February 1st. If your start date were February 1st, also your FSA would be effective February 1st. And you'll want to check, because I don't know when it is you're watching this video, check our website to see how many more paychecks there will be between when your coverage would begin and the end of the calendar year of 2024. You'd have deductions coming out of the first and the second check of the month. And so you can calculate how many more paychecks there will be from which your election could be divided. If you do enroll in the FSA, be sure that you substantiate your claims or they will be denied. This means that if Optum asks you to prove why it is that you're trying to spend the money from your FSA, you have to be able to show them documentation of where you were spending the money, what the doctor's name was, for example, or what the name of the child care provider was, and the exact date of the expenses that were incurred, the description of the expenses, who was receiving the care, or who was visiting the doctor. And if you can't submit that information, then your claim is denied. So be sure to be ready with documentation to substantiate your claims when asked. You do want to remember to spend your FSAs by the end of the year, because anything that is not able to be carried over to the next year would be forfeited. You may be able to roll up as much as $610 of the 2024 Health FSA into 2025, but it depends in part on how much money is left in your account and whether or not you re-elect for 2025. The dependent daycare FSA does not allow any rollover, so be certain that you spend in full anything that you'd sent over to your 2024 dependent daycare FSA, or it will be forfeited. Now, your health and limited purpose FSAs are pre-funded. The entire amount that you pledged to contribute for the year is available to spend upfront, while your dependent daycare FSA doesn't have a starting balance. Not until money is being withheld from your paychecks and sent to the FSA would you then be able to submit claims and be reimbursed for your dependent care expenses. And then the parking and transit accounts are slightly different, which is why I separate them out just a bit. We have a transportation services office at UW-Madison that allows us to purchase bus passes. We can pay for them $48 a year for unlimited rides at Madison Metro, and we can pay for those pre-tax out of our paychecks. There's also an emergency taxi voucher program, other information about pre-tax parking, like for annual base lot permits, and then other commuter solutions. So do check out the transportation.wisc.edu website for their specific information. But for the transit pre-tax accounts, there is a transit account that would allow you to contribute up to $300 a month to run certain after-tax transit costs through. Again, most of us would not need this particular account if we're here in the Madison area, because we can pay for our UW bus pass pre-tax through our payroll. This might be, though, appropriate for you if you live in a place where you need to take the train or the ferry to work, and paying for that transit pre-tax could be money saving in that way. There's also then the parking pre-tax accounts. And again, if you have an annual base lot permit through the UW Transportation Office, you can choose to pay for it through payroll pre-tax. So you wouldn't need this pre-tax parking account. You wouldn't need a second pre-tax account. However, if you are paying for a flex parking permit, meaning that you have to use your debit card or credit card to load money onto the permit with after-tax money, and then you spend that after-tax money when you are happening to swipe in for the parking lot for the day, then it's possible that if you have enough cost during the year that it could be worth it to open and contribute to the pre-tax parking account separately. Again, you can take a look at the literature on our website and ask us questions if you have any. Now we're wrapping up here. There are a few free and low-cost resources that I'll mention aloud, and then there are more that are part of the slides that you could review on your own if you would like to. We have an employee assistance office that offers free personal counseling sessions and crisis response and grief services. They're located on campus if you want to meet them in person, but they could alternatively meet with you via phone or via video chat. And they work with a company called Life Matters that offers their own counseling services. And so you could have multiple different counselors and discussions available to you if you are interested in those services. You may also load money onto your WISC card and then spend the money that's on the card, use it as a debit card at the union and housing locations here on campus and save 5% on the food that you're purchasing, or use it to purchase items at the university bookstore and save 5% on textbooks and school supplies. And as we wrap up, then I just want to mention, because sometimes we know life events are going to be occurring and sometimes they take us by surprise, keep in mind that should you ever have a significant life event that could be as simple as you moved to a new housing location, or it could be more complex, such as you are now gaining new members of your family through a marriage or a domestic partnership or an adoption or the birth of a child, or maybe you are gaining or losing insurance coverage by someone, or you're losing family because of a divorce or a separation. Let your HR office know, or let my office know how that may affect any benefit options that you have. We want to be sure that we talk to you sooner than later, because most of them have a deadline to make changes of just 30 days from the event itself. And do reach out to my office or to your own local HR contacts if you have any questions about any of the information we shared here today, or other topics that perhaps we didn't touch on, but that you believe we would know more about. Again, you can find your own local HR, if you don't yet know who they are, by looking at our website, hr.wisc.edu/contacts. Welcome to the UW-Madison. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to working with you. Reach out if you have any questions. Take care, everyone.